Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the You Don't Look Like an Engineer podcast. Today, we're back with another guest, the amazing, forgive me if I butcher this, Sascha Kurz.
That's it. Sascha Kurz. Yeah.
Kurz,
Awesome.
okay.
Yeah, so Sascha is actually the Engineer of the Year in Queensland. She recently was awarded that on the Engineers Australia Excellence Awards. So it's an honor to have you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us and for your time.
Big congratulations.
Thank you. I feel that I'm in a similar company on the phone tonight. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
2 award winners here. I'm in the presence of fame.
Your turn next.
Absolutely. But before we dive into that and, how it felt and the repercussions of winning something on a platform like that, we'd firstly like to get into, your early childhood days. We're big believers that, everything we do is formed, like the decisions are formed in the formation years. And so what do you think when you look back? What inspired you to become an engineer?
It's a really good question. I think it was only later in my schooling career or even early university that the engineering phrase came across my desk. Originally, back in my time, being good at maths and physics at school meant your guidance counsellors recommended as a female that you become a doctor. So that was kind of the trajectory I was on. So, even from year 4, so what's that, 8 or 9 years old, I thought I'd be a doctor. And I really didn't know anything about engineering. This was well before there was the great STEM education program there is now in schools. And I actually started doing pre-med at uni, and it was only because I ended up in some similar classes with my male friends from college. And I said, "What are you studying?" And they said engineering, and I worked out I really enjoyed those classes more than the biology and chemistry classes. So I changed, but it was one of those sliding door moments that, I'm so happy about, because I guess in those formative years, I was always a problem solver, like even as a child, and, loved tangible solutions, and there was different ways to navigate things. So I think eventually ending up in this career was where I was supposed to be.
Wow. And evidently you love the challenge. If you've been from medicine to engineering, you don't like to play small.
Yeah, I didn't like blood or cutting, so I think I ended up in the last spot.
Chemistry is also really hard, in my opinion.
100%. But good you figured out you don't like blood. I had a cousin who did med, and she figured she is averse to blood because right at towards the tail end, they took them inside a theater, an operation theater. She passed out when she saw the blood. That was the end of her career.
Oh, wow. No, it was a bit late by then. Sascha, I'm intrigued to know what your answer to this will be. We just always love to ask people, if they could explain what they do. But in this instance, we're going to be like, okay, if you were going to explain to a 5-year-old the things that you do and the skills you use daily, what would you describe?
Yeah, another good question. I actually have two small children. Well, they're getting bigger now. They're 8 and 10. So I've kind of had first-hand experience. And even if you ask my 10-year-old now, she'd try and point out the bridges or the buildings that I had something to do with. Mum built that. But look, to explain to a 5-year-old what we do as engineers, we basically create a roadmap and an idea for society to build the critical infrastructure or the critical elements we need to keep us functioning as a community. And obviously in engineering, there's different ways that you contribute to that overall ideal. For what I do, I'm not a design engineer. I've always been in delivery, so I've always been physically delivering the projects. Again, not with my own 2 hands, even though I tell the kids that I built that or I built that. But I guess just working with a group of amazingly skilled professionals to bring, a dream to life or a critical need to life, and service the community in that way. So that's probably, 5-year-old is probably too big a words that I just used then for them to understand. But, get lots of people together and draw things and then, see something built that helps the community.
That's awesome. I do want to ask if that's a conscious decision you made to get into the delivery side of things, or how it panned out.
So I studied at UQ, and back when I did my degree, I can't talk for the curriculum now, but when I did my degree, it was very technically focused. So it was very design focused. I think probably 80% of the cohort ended up in design firms straight out of uni. And when I was doing my internship, that, as part of graduating, you need a certain amount of days as an intern, I ended up working for a delivery company. And I just love the on-site, again, tangibility around seeing something that got built and seeing the challenges from implementing a design on paper into real life. And so I made the conscious decision when I graduated to go and work in a construction company. But at the time, my head was, go and work in a construction company for 2 years so you understand the on-ground, troubles and requirements, and then bring that back into a design firm to help produce more buildable or constructible designs. So that was kind of the conscious thought when I graduated, and I just had too much fun in delivery, and I stayed there for 15 years.
I wonder whether back then you had sort of like an idea about, you becoming the founder of a consulting firm.
Not at all. I'm still trying to work that out now as I build the business. No, look, my dad gave me some really good advice, and it's a little bit black and white, and I don't take his words as meaning necessarily financial, but he said to me, experience first, money later, or money second. So I really always wanted to be able to walk the walk and not just talk the talk. So I wanted to get on ground real experience before I looked to enter into senior roles. And it was only when I got to a point in time that I felt ready to enter those senior roles, and for whatever reasons with the companies I was in, they didn't recognize that, and might have brought in other people in front of me, which is fine. I have no issue. But when you looked at those people that were brought in above you and you didn't feel that they were adding as much value as you were, that's when I kind of made a conscious change a couple of times in my career to move on to different firms and seek that leadership journey. So I always really wanted to get that deep knowledge, and I promote that a lot with my young team and people that look to join our business. Obviously, when market booms, things change in our industry, and I saw it with the mining boom back in the late 2000s. But a lot of young engineers getting offered a lot of money to go and do roles, and it all sounds great on paper, but eventually when that boom ended, that cohort of engineers had to try and deliver projects back in a competitive environment with strict costs. And I saw a big thing that they found it hard. So I often talk to my team about, even if you don't like something for a little while, just stick at it. It's very important on your CV not to bounce around, to really have shown that you've delivered something or given a good, effort into a project, rather than just chasing a shiny ball all the time. And I think you don't appreciate the amazingness of our industry unless you have those downtimes, and you have to have those learnings, and that they make you appreciate the positive times even more.
Absolutely. I think it's like anything in life, right? Like you can't always have happy days. You have to appreciate the low to enjoy the highs. But I really like the advice that your father gave you, because it is very true, especially in our position in the industry as females. We have to be very competent at what we do, because we have lower opportunities, and sometimes we want to make change, and a lot of the stuff that we hear is that they are not ready for that type of job, or they are not competent. And sometimes we hinder our opportunity to be in any senior leadership positions, because sometimes people are not ready for those positions, and then we all look a little bit bad, and we're like, oh, we're really trying really hard.
It never ends, to be honest. I've been very fortunate that I've felt it very beneficial the majority of my career to be a female. I felt it's been a point of difference, being able to come across, problems with a different viewpoint, manage stakeholders and people, even down to, construction labourers on site, with a different approach and different mentality. But, even after I won the Engineer of the Year with EA the other day, a colleague of mine texted me and said, "Oh, I'm so proud of you, and that shows those guys at that old business that said you were an idiot." So even at, my my level within the industry. And, for me, it's water off a duck's back, but it really opened my eyes that still at this level, you have sometimes that mentality. Maybe people not understanding how you approach things. So
I'm sort of glad we're on the topic because I did want to address what I perceive to be the elephant in the room. You chose construction and you chose an industry where we know about 40% of women don't continue on. And I don't know if that statistic was higher before, but that's the statistically where we're at right now. How did you keep going in such a harsh environment?
Probably firstly, I loved it. I really loved the work. I love the connections. I love the learning. One of my favorite memories is when I was on my first job out of uni. I was on a construction project for a new university, and I walked out into the field, and we were in the ground, so it was really early days. And I think I heard the steel fixers saying, "Oh, who let the secretary out on site?" Just having a bit of fun. And again, for me, it's always been a little bit water off the duck's back. If it becomes more, than deal with it, but just try and navigate in the first instance. And anyway, that particular steel fixer who had a bull ring and a mullet and tattoos, and we ended up becoming good mates on site because I just jumped into the footing with him and said, "Tell me how you're tying the steel. Tell me the issues that you have with the engineering design." And he really taught me. And as we got that bond of me not being there, pointing fingers and dictating him what to do, and him teaching me, it just formed this great relationship. So that really early in my career taught me that there's a different way. You can choose, to, I don't want to say complain, but you can choose to make something an issue, or you can choose to try and solve that issue yourself. And there's only been a handful of times in my whole career where I feel that I haven't been able to solve an issue with a, male counterpart on site. And I'm really proud of that. And the connections that I've made along the way is just been fantastic. So I loved it. I really embraced the culture. And then I even had 2 kids while I was a construction project manager. And both times I only had 4 months maternity leave. So that was a challenge. The first time seemed easy. The second time literally broke me. But, it's just that love of what we do. And if you've got passion, you can work out logistics and you can get it done.
Well, that's excellent to hear. And even for those construction, companies that are oh, it doesn't, the maternity leave doesn't work with the type of roles on site. I'm well, ask Sascha otherwise. And you can make it work. And I love that you are saying that it's more of an opportunity type of mindset, because we do sometimes when we see things, when we take, and I hate saying this, but I'm going to say it. We take things personal. And of course we are oh my God, that was so rude. How dare that person say that? But if we sort of go back to, okay, what can we make out of this comment, or what can we make out of this situation? And we're okay, I'm doing my part. You were doing your part by telling that guy to teach you or to show you in which ways you can work better, or, the design could go smoother, or, it's that change in mindset that really helps moving forward.
We all have a choice, and I think and I'll say hand on heart, there's a lot of people, females in our industry, that haven't had the same opportunity as me, and maybe I had a really smooth run. So I don't want to talk on behalf of everybody, but I do feel that we do have a choice. And if we try and navigate that through the best we can, and as I said, there's been a few occasions in my career that I've done my best and I haven't been able to navigate those issues. And I made the choice at that point to, go in a different direction, rather than, bang my head against the wall, so to speak.
Yeah. I love that. I also love the fact that you are a female founder. That makes me really happy, because there's so many in any, generally in all the industries, there's 38% here in Australia, and it's too low. So I'm really happy that, you are a very responsible or accountable CEO. So you spreading that, and definitely something that the industry needs.
Yeah, but before we get into IPS, which obviously we'll talk about, as someone you said, your mentality is to try to solve issues yourself without making them a problem, but you have run into these like situations where you couldn't fix it. How did you know yourself when to stop trying to solve it and when to call it quits versus, you keep going? Yeah.
I think, again, it's got to have a time component to it. Like, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I've done everything I physically can to remedy this situation. And if you feel that in your heart and you still don't see a way through it, then you can walk away or turn left instead of right, whatever the exit plan is. But knowing that you have tried your absolute best, and when you feel in a position that your hands are tied behind your back and no matter what you do, you can't change the outcome, then you have to look after yourself. You have to look after your own mental health, and you need to, acknowledge those times and then make different choices. So I say to my team as well, like, we've all been on projects that have been good and not so good. And I have a little saying about 3 months and 6 months. So I think can be normal in the industry to go through a 3-month period where something on a project's, not great, or you're struggling with X, Y, and Z. And through that 3 months, you try and make these plans to better it or to improve it or make a solution. But if you're 6 months in and you're feeling no development in that space and it's still the same things, then I really think that you need to, sit back and have a look at what you're doing moving forward. Because yeah, I mean, mental health in terms of, construction hours and engineering hours is hard enough as it is, let alone when you're feeling that you're fighting an impossible battle. And that can be really hard for people of an engineering mentality, because you don't want to give up. You don't want to be seen as a quitter. But sometimes you have to put yourself first. And I've done that 2 times in my career where I've just said, no, enough's enough. I, personally can't continue, and also ethically, I think, as well on certain projects. So, but I think in a career of 20 years, only happening twice is not.
That's pretty fantastic. Weren't there any regrets?
Yeah, learnings, I would say. I wouldn't say I regret anything. But one of the biggest learnings that I took, it was on a project that didn't go well, that I was responsible for. And I felt that I was doing the right thing, following the reporting protocols and doing what I was doing. If I had my time over again, I would have actually deviated from those reporting protocols and escalated above that particular manager, which, as an employee, you don't want to do. You don't want to rock the boat. But if I had my time over again and I could say to myself, you did everything you could to avoid the issues, then I would have taken, at that time, the brave step and put my head on the chopping block by going above someone's head. And yeah, so that's probably something that always sticks into my head. But that particular project, as difficult as it was, it set me up for so many more positive things because of the lessons I learned. Really being honest. You often get maybe directed by a manager to, oh, don't worry about that now, we'll deal with it later, just report this, or don't say that to the client, or now I just say it as it is. And sometimes that can be really confronting to a client, but I try and say it as it is and then have a solution or a plan to get it right again. But don't hide anything and don't think that you can fix it by yourself, because when we have these problems in engineering, it takes a team to fix it. So to have the, I guess, inward thoughts of not trying to be, all things to all people and solve everything, and get the people around you, admit that you've got a problem and try and get all the heads together to solve it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times we sort of like struggle with asking for help, and it's like we take a lot on.
Yeah, and we see it as a weakness.
Yeah, that's right. We see it as a weakness, and sometimes we're better off just asking for help because we put in ourselves in some sticky situations we could have avoided if we had asked for help. Yeah. Am I okay to ask her for IPS? So, Han, is that all right?
Yeah, you get it.
Like, can I go for that? Because I think it's really important that we know what your journey was with IPS, how you started, And just for context, is IPS your own consulting venture, or is anyone else involved? Or
No, it's my own. So I'm the sole director of the business. So, but I guess in terms of the journey, so when I had 15 years in construction and I had 2 young kids at this point, babies.
so wait, I have to just interrupt you. I'm so sorry. You started this when you had 2 kids.
Yeah, I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
So it wasn't just hard to get out of, to take the leap of faith. It wasn't enough. You're a high achiever, Sascha.
I just like to do everything at the same time to make it as hard as possible. It's like that age-old saying, every time someone's pregnant, they renovate their house or move house. It's like get it all at the same time. So no, look, originally it wasn't a strategic plan at all. I left construction. I worked for tier 1 companies for 15 years, as I said. And I just wanted to try something different. And I got the opportunity to work as a consultant for government on a big project. And naturally through that, I had to create an ABN and a company name. So I came up with, the broader name Infrastructure Project Solutions in its entirety. And I basically just acted as a consultant for a number of years. And through that initial journey, I had some other consultants that joined me. So we had a little business going, which was low risk and quite fun and a lot of freedom. COVID hit and I was consulting at that time, and I actually got approached by SEQ Water to go and go and work as a manager for project delivery for them in their capital department, and kind of had a look. I did a, MCA, multi-criteria analysis, as every engineer does, about what's the best career pathway, and put percentages and did sensitivity analysis, and it all worked out. It's just a gut call. So as most of the time it is. But long story short, I went to SEQ as an employee for a couple of years, and that was really fantastic. I learned so much there. I had the best female manager, the best manager I've ever had. She now sits on my advisory board. And after 2 years, I just came back from Christmas and I just had this real desire to try and build a legitimate consulting business. So prior it was just a business of chance or, opportunity. So I took the leap, resigned from SEQ Water, and had a family, 2 kids, no income, and just went, you got to give it a crack. So that was 2.5 years ago. So I've been in Brisbane for 20 years, some good connections, good colleagues, and managed to get, a slow flow of work through. And look, fast forward 2.5 years, we've got 30 staff here in Brisbane. We've got 20 or so clients, mixture of government and private clients. And I just love the work that we're doing. It makes me excited to come to work. It's giving back to the community. We don't chase the shiny balls. We like to do, if everyone's chasing Olympics or this or that, we'll go and do some other critical infrastructure. And I'm not saying I wouldn't love to work on those kind of, once in a career project. Of course I would. But at the moment, we're really focusing on critical infrastructure and helping communities have, the basic water and wastewater that they need to survive. So, yeah, that's a really quick highlight of the IPS journey.
Wow. Congratulations for your success. It's epic to hear that. And I also, did I mishear you, or did you say that you've been in Brisbane for a few years? Like, are you originally from Brisbane?
Yeah, so I grew up the Sunshine Coast, but I did uni here. So I've been in Brisbane since 2000, sorry. Spent a few years working overseas as an engineer, but besides that, I've been in Brisbane or Southeast Queensland. So, a lot of people say, it's amazing that, you've built the company, you got to this size in 2.5 years. And my response is always, it's not 2.5 years for me, it's 24 years. It's not like I just flew to Melbourne and went, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to start a consulting business and click my fingers. Like, I'm not that sophisticated.
It's the overnight success that took 20 years.
Correct. Yeah, after 20 years, we're seeing the fruits of the labour, so.
Aww. That is so inspiring, especially also because you're not, I know you are still from Queensland, but, moving around and having connections that sometimes can be seen as an impediment or as an obstacle, to achieve so many things. So it's good to hear that, and a lot of our audience from the Sunny Coast will be like,
Yeah. Yeah. We still do work at the coast. That's great.
I can't imagine the challenges that it would face, to be able to start that, eventually going out on your own, obviously, when you were doing it under Seqwater. For, I think, context to the listeners, just so they can understand the magnitude of what you were dealing with. Seqwater is like the water governing body for Southeast Queensland. Yeah, and to be able to manage projects for them, I think that scale.
and be on their panels.
Yeah, exactly. I did want to ask a question about your manager, and I don't know if you've had a lot of female managers in your career, but often, sometimes not the most positive, but we hear that, there's sometimes the most issues women face is from female managers. And it's sort of like, you climb up the ladder and pull out the ladder for all you.
That's an expression she uses all the time, actually. Yeah. Yeah. She uses that all the time.
You attribute that to, or have you faced that sort of thing? Why do you think it takes place?
Yeah, or look, to break down your question, she was the first female manager that I had. And she, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, is in her 60s. So, and she's an engineer out of South Africa that's worked internationally. But she, she's a trailblazer. She's been through all this. She's experienced everything that you just discussed, or any of us could experience as a female in engineering. So I think I was just so fortunate that she brought all of her experiences, both positive and negative, and shaped her leadership style to reflect what she would have loved to have when she was a younger engineer. And that expression, she said it all the time, we want to be the women that, hold the ladder up for those under us, not, kicking it out. And I take that in my career now with my team, and really, try and set an example and lift everybody up, whether it's male or female, but not try and be. I think that the second part of the question, I think females, because of the industry, may feel threatened, and so they don't want to give up their space. So if they see someone rising up, maybe that's when they kick the ladder out. But I think as our industry expands and our female ratio in terms of involvement, the women that might be that way inclined to saying, oh, I don't have to behave like that as much anymore. I'm not under as much threat as I may have felt previously. But I don't necessarily think that's a gender-specific thing. I've definitely experienced that with male leaders as well. So I think, again, that's, recognising what kind of person you want to work for. And if you look upwards in an organisation and you don't see that culture or that leadership style you want, then you need to question yourself as why you're still there.
It's a hard question, I feel, because as you were saying, like you did say, you don't want to rock the boat at times. You don't report the poor behavior because you don't want to rock the boat. And then you sort of like see the poor behavior or the poor leadership styles, and you are still like, oh, but I sort of like need this job. Like, it's a little bit hard.
Exactly right. And there's, you can't, and I don't, portray to speak for everyone, because everyone's got different scenarios and everyone's got different personalities. And, some of the people I respect the most in the industry they're just happy doing what they're doing. They're not necessarily trying to climb the ladder or rock the boat. And they love what they're doing. They're happy. And that, for someone that's always trying to, go the next step, it was originally, a little bit different for me to engage with these people and go, well, hold on, how come you don't want to try and get your manager's role? How come you don't want to do this? And appreciating that some people are just so comfortable and happy where they are, that not everyone has to be, going for the top. And that was a really good learning of mine as well. So working out where those personalities lie and then nurturing those people and make sure they can be in that chosen pathway and be protected.
Oh, that speaks a lot about your leadership skills. And it goes to show that, as you said, like, we're not all the same, and we all don't have the same ambitions, and that's respectable. I hope that's the word.
And I think you need a mix of that, because if everyone wants to be a leader, then
who's gonna do the work?
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to when we were talking about, your father's advice, because I just had this question come through in my head. And you were saying that you guys don't chase the gold ball. I hope I got that one right. But we see that, like, Gen Zs, or I'm just gonna say generational terms, but we see that Gen Z people sort of like a little bit like they're approaching the workforce a little bit different. And if they don't see, themselves really happy or being they don't align with the firm or whatever it is, with the salary expectation, or if they just don't like the projects they are working on, they're quickly to just be like, okay, I'm moving to the next thing. Or like, we also see some generations being like, I want to just become a senior. How do you deal with people like that coming from different mentality?
Yeah, look, and it is really true. I see it all the time. And, first thing to be said, can't criticize people that, that's what they've been shown as well. They've graduated and, seen that as a normal thing and offering more money and seeing their peers move around. So it's kind of, sometimes you follow what you see, right? But the advice that I give, and if I'm hiring and I look at a CV and see someone that's got 5 years and they've been at 5 different companies, it's alarm bells for me. Because no matter how far we progress in an industry, and we're not where we were 20, 30 years ago when a lot of people stayed at companies for 10, 15, 20 years, I understand as a company owner, like that's not the thing now. And I don't think I'm going to own somebody or someone's going to stay for 20 years. It's changed, but you still have to do your time. You have to show that you can not just bounce in terms, if something is a little bit hard or you get it, a carrot thrown, somewhere else, that I think moving for an extra 5 or 10 grand early in your career for not the right reasons can be really detrimental in the long term. So I think, for people that really do ultimately want, to get rewarded both from a leadership advancement and financial in the future, the best advice is just to stick with something and really prove your value. And if you're in the right company that appreciates that value, you will realize what you're trying to achieve earlier. So one thing that I really disliked in my generation coming through was and it's still there, but the big companies I worked for all had bands, right? So you had to be a site engineer for X years, and then you could be a project engineer, and you had to have X level of experience before you went up. And I get to the point and say, well, hi, I'm doing this job. Just because I don't tick that band, why won't you give it? Oh, the bands, we don't want to set precedents across Australia, yada, yada, yada. One thing we're doing at IPS is we're just throwing that out of the door. We don't have bands. Obviously, as a business owner, we want to make sure that similar people are doing similar roles or on similar conditions. So, we don't have chalk and cheese. But if someone comes and proves that they're a senior project engineer, but they've only got 4 years experience, but they're doing that role, they will become a senior project engineer with IPS. So really rewarding what people are performing rather than look at, standards or policies within a business that dictate, because we know that those don't work for all people. And again, I understand bigger businesses having to do that because they have hundreds of people and you can't, have individual decisions. But I'm not a massive business. I'm a small business and we get to make these choices, and it's something I'm really proud of.
I think there's an excellent takeaway in here, and it's to, as a young professional, really, I guess, just take the opportunity of being a young professional and get to absorb all the knowledge that you can whilst you are in that position. And I like that you always go back to, dedicating to the, like, even though you'd be like, oh, I want to just move on from this, but like the dedication and perseverance that, some challenges require. It's actually, you don't understand the outcomes until you've gone through that. And we did a podcast on grit, and I think that's sort of like what the research showed. Like if it's not something, if you, even though you don't enjoy it, if you don't sort of like stick to it until the end, then how are you supposed to learn perseverance and all of these other things? So I do think that it's also important, which is nice to hear. Yeah.
I think resilience is, I don't think you can be in our industry without having a good level of resilience. And the younger you can learn that, the more successful you're going to be in your career.
100%. But there's a lot of, like how you said, young people trying to look to, move places for whatever it may be, a bigger challenge, more money. At least in my perception, it seems to be that there's an increasing trend of younger people trying to start like their own consultancies. Do you see that as well? Or, just what are your thoughts on, seeing young people trying to venture out? And by young, I mean people maybe 5 or 6 years experience.
Look, number one, best of luck to everybody. You can't have a cookie cutter answer to people that are probably phenomenal at that experience and should be doing that. But I'll just go back to, again, like it's my dad's advice, but my greatest fear is to be seen as an imposter or be seen as somebody that doesn't have the experience. So, like, it took me 20 years to start my own company, and that was me personally. And I am an ambitious person and I do have confidence, but I had to get to a certain level myself where I went, okay, now's your time. That was my personal journey. And within my business, again, it's the same thing reflected outwardly. I never want our business to, say, call someone a project manager, but really they're not at that level. I always want us to be real and our people and our quality of our products reflect what we're telling our clients. So I guess it goes to each individual's viewpoint of what they're trying to achieve. As I said, but, some of them is going to be great for them and might be family decisions or something like that. But I guess I'm a little bit old school that I did 15 years in construction and I'm so glad I did that. So I think I was really lucky when I went through. I didn't get sucked into any of these big peaks like we're seeing now. And I've seen the impacts of that happening. So I'm really proud of we've got a really young team and the team of engineers that are working with me. They've chosen to do different. They've chosen to come in and work with a company where they're valued. There's a great culture. They get opportunity. They're not labeled. They can go as high as they want, as quickly as they want if they're proving that value. And I often say to the team, I see IPS a lot as a stepping stone for these people. I don't, again, purport to keep them for 10 years, 20 years. And if we can be a little bit of a safe space for people at transition points of their career to come and try something new or experience something different, and we do that for a couple of years and have a great relationship and add value, then I'm so supportive of them going and, on the next adventure.
Oh, that's beautiful. You talked about quality of work, and now you're running your own firm, and you hear this happen generally across the industry where now it's kind of like a race to the cheapest, bid to be able to win it. Yeah, race to the bottom. I was trying to put it nicely. But essentially, how do you see that impacting the industry in the long term? Do you see like it's stopping and everyone's like, okay, we can't do this anymore? And how do you navigate that personally to not have that in your particular consultancy?
Yeah, look, I had a lesson early on, back before I formed the consultancy, and I was just acting as a consultant, and through some connections, I got asked to price a job, and I thought, oh, this is great, this is some good work that could come, and really looked at the job and thought how we could add value and did a detailed proposal. And anyway, we didn't win the job and got the feedback. And let's say, for argument's sake, our offering for this particular project equated to 7% of the contract value, for argument's sake. And the feedback was, oh, well, we got 5 other quotes and they all do it for 3%. That's just how they do it. That's their stock standard thing. And I took away from that, I never just want to be box tickers or paper pushers or, like a fight for who can do that work for the lowest percentage. We put our really value proposition into what we think where we could add value on the project, and that client just always for the industry standard of going for that lower position. So I guess I learned from that, and how we avoid it now. Number one, we hire, and obviously I'm going to be totally biased. I mean, we're totally biased. We hire only the top people, right? And we really want to remunerate our people well. So as a business, if we've got the top people and remunerating well, we can't have a race to the bottom. We can't deliver quality products with quality people at a race to the bottom and a fight for that stuff. So we really focus on projects where we can really add value but provide a cost-effective way to do that for our clients. And that's a big part of what we do. One of my phrases I use with the team is our job is to do ourselves out of a job. So get in there, help the client fulfill an immediate need, but empower them and give them the tools that their team internally can continue the project or the assignment and not need to pay for us as consultants sitting around longer than we can, longer than we need. You've probably found out from me, like I'm not a person who likes to sit still. So the thought of just having bums on seats is not a business model I ever want to, progress with. So again, it's working out the projects and the clients where they see that value. You understand their requirements. You give them innovative solutions. One of the little innovations we've come up with, and I just made it up, but we call it sustainable resourcing. So what that model is, a lot of our clients, from what they know previously, they think they want a project director. So they'll come and say, we want a project director. We want that person for 100%. And I'll say, okay, well, what are you trying to get out of it? And we'll break down with a client and we'll say, look, I understand why you want that. A lot of other my clients, similar situation, they've felt that they need the same thing. But what our clients have found when we've done this sustainable resourcing is they can get so much more delivery for the same price. So an example for that, someone wants, let's say me, we want you to come and be a project director 100%. And I look at what that's going to cost the client. I break down what they actually need. And I say, you don't need me 100%. You don't need me writing a briefing note or taking minutes in a PCG. What you need is me 30% to drive the directorship and the strategy. You need a PE to do this. You need an administrator. Here's our offering. It still comes up to 100% of the project director or less in cost, but it's a more sustainable way to deliver what you are looking for, more output, and sustainable in a way that if I get sick, there's still people in the team that know what they're doing and can keep a project rolling. So that's the kind of value add that we look and how we try and position ourselves different from, other players in market that are more looking for the quantity rather than the quality.
Yeah, right. I love it. It is. I like the word sustainable resourcing.
In order to do what you're doing, you have to have a really interesting relationship with your client in the sense that you have to manage it. You're just not submitting tenders. We actually are working along with them and getting them involved in your delivery. How did you manage to get that involvement with the client? Because that's very different from everyone else. That's an excellent benefit for your company,
I think trust, trust and performance. A lot of our work, you can say from, little things, big things grow. So, we might get a client that just wants a little bit of work done. It might be $5,000 worth of work and we'll approach that $5,000 assignment like $1 million assignment, at the same attention, the same level of quality, and you get in, you get it deliver, you form that trust. And the more trust and time you spend with a client, the more open they are to have these kind of conversations. What can we do differently? How can we skin this cat in another way? And it's not for everyone, but they're the clients that we enjoy the most, where we can have those conversations, look to add value, be really, hands up where we say, look, you don't need us anymore, or this consultant's actually better placed than us to do this. And that's another thing that I really enjoy with our community here in Southeast Queensland, that there's a lot of my peers that are of my generation and experience, and it's all really positive connections. It doesn't feel competitive. It feels that everyone's supporting each other, and I'll have a client, call and say, well, if we get you to do this $10,000 piece of work, we don't want to preclude you from being able to tender for the bigger piece. And, often I'll look at that and say, well, thank you so much for thinking of us, but we're not actually best placed to do that work. Being honest with what your service offering in, and refer your clients to companies that have that skill set rather than being, greedy. You said the greedy podcast the other day. So yeah, I think that's a big thing. Don't try and be everything to everybody, and know where your skills lie, and share the love. Because, I think it's really important to be able to succeed through what you said with this peak, get the right people doing the right job.
Sorry, back on people and jobs. You are actively hiring these days. Like you have to get people involved in your business. This is more so a trend in larger businesses, but I'm not sure if you face this as well. Wanted to get your thoughts on, the gender quotas that a lot of companies are adopting. A certain percentage of females, just have to be filled. What do you think of that and impacts on industry and good or bad? Anything yet?
Oh, look, again, I understand why companies are looking at that, and I don't stand to comment, negatively on that. For me personally, we don't have any targets. It's natural. We have over 40% women in our business, which is, triple, 2.5 times the national average, I think. And that hasn't come from any quotas. That's come from, not only our females in our team, but our males are just the biggest champions in terms of loving the balance. So, word of mouth and referrals, we're getting a lot of great male and females coming in, and just naturally through talent and through culture, that's where we've ended up. So at the moment, it's not something as a business we need to, monitor. It happens naturally. And for me, it's not just gender diversity, it's diversity across many other areas. We have a lot of immigrant engineers that work with us, and the value that they bring is just phenomenal. We have visa sponsor programs. Yes, we're federally accredited to sponsor, and then we've got a lot of just great people that, on their own 2 feet get their PR or their visas. And one of my great engineers, Therindu, I call him T. I interviewed him when he was in Sri Lanka, and we started talking about cricket, and I'm like, we need to work together. And so he works for me. But just we've actually got a world map, big canvas world map in our office, and it's got a little compass with IPS on it. And we have pins and flags of everybody from their original nation around. So just the diversity, and you can again tick a box and say diversity, cultural diversity, but the value that you get from different perspectives and different backgrounds is immense. And another one of my Aussie, but originally from Persia, from Iran, he recently went up to an Aboriginal community to do a piece of work, and he just loved it. So someone from such a different culture immersing themselves in an Aboriginal community and seeing the joy and the experience that he got from that those kind of things make me happy.
I guess when you're in a smaller environment, everyone knows each other, and you are overseeing exactly all the decisions that are being made. It's a different situation to say like a big, machine, and everyone's just a cog. And these days they're introducing like hiring tools like AI, and we know the biases that introduces. I guess the question that I had is, do you think having a percentage that you have to meet works in getting, the numbers up? Because some people have subconscious biases, they're not really looking at it. Then you have AI biases. So there's people that get left, quality people, and gotta say, it doesn't necessarily mean you're losing quality. Just having that target there, good fix to get, diversity numbers up, and to be able for them to see the same returns you're seeing, in terms of diversity of thought, input and everything.
I think you have to have lived experience, to be honest, to really drive that in a company culture. So, my name, okay, it's not that diverse, but it's different enough, right? It's different enough that if you see a CV with my name back in the day, people like, is that a boy or a girl? Where are they from? I'm going to put them in the B basket because their name's not Jane Smith. And then I've been in organisations where, recruitment teams, I've been recruiting a role, and they've done a short list, and, if a name's a little bit different or hard to pronounce, it again gets put in this pile. So I've had these lived experiences where I'll get a CV, I'll look at it in about 5 seconds and sit down with that person. If the CV ticks, the technical boxes, have a coffee with that person, and I'll never look at the CV again. You have a coffee with someone, that they've got the skills, but it's the cultural alignment and that connection of people that, to me, is the most important thing in our industry. And I think that shift away from the pure bias towards technical acumen and understanding the softer skills that are needed in our industry, I think that's the biggest point of difference that we can make moving forward, and really embracing those points of difference.
Oh, that's such a good topic that you touched on, the softer skills we need in the industry. Could be a whole nother episode on that.
Sascha, we really value your time, and all the insights that you have really shared with us are invaluable. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I only have one last question that I would like to ask you, and is, what is next for you? Like, what are you looking forward to next? It doesn't have to be engineering. It can be personal as well.
Yeah. Look, I'm just really looking forward to continuing the trajectory that we're on with the clients and the projects that we're working on. Of course, with the company, seeing where we can take it, seeing the difference that we can make. And for me, difference is across so many different spectrums. So, difference with clients and projects, career opportunities that we can present to people. And a really big focus of mine over the last 2 years is really giving back to the industry. I feel like I've had an amazing journey, and you finally realise, I'm not the young one anymore, which is a bit of a weird feeling because I still feel young, but I'm really giving back to the engineering community and doing whatever I can to promote, whether it's from STEM, within schools or unis, all the way through to, I guess, attracting people from other industries into ours and helping shape that. So 2 of my managers are from totally different industries. So my marketing manager is from car industry. My business manager is from retail. And those 2 females have done just an amazing job immersing into engineering and construction and brought so much value. So yeah, just continuing to, our motto is drive difference. So I think I'm really happy to keep on, driving difference and driving change in our industry for the better, hopefully.
You will do so. We'll see you succeed. Like, this is just the beginning. You have that attitude. Oh, thank you so much, Sascha.
No worries. Thanks. And sorry I'm like rosy cheeked. It's like 1,000 degrees where I am right now. Like, I didn't put the aircon on, so I'm like hot. But I saw that we've got the same shirt on. But
I saw that as well. Oh my gosh. Oh, choice. You one of these. Yes, and you there you love exactly the same one. It'll be really. I am just a bit curious because this business manager and person have from completely different industries. And for context, like, I was talking to my sister and she has worked in project management but in retail, and she was like, "Oh, I don't have the skill set to do it in an engineering space." I was like, "You do, but how do you convince something that they do have that when they don't have the technical backing?"
You got to bring them in and show them. Like, you got to set them up for success, have that safety net below them, let them kind of navigate through, but be there to support them. Like my EA, he does everything, Liam, with our engineering business. He's from retail. Like, we met and he was working in, a supermarket. But I saw, what skills he had, and he's immersed into it. So I think giving that opportunity in a really supportive environment, and watching them flourish, that's the best thing. So tell your sister to give me a call.
But even as a leader, how do you remove that bias in your head and say, "Oh, they're not going to be able to do it. It's engineering. It's different."
You just gotta not be so full of yourself that you think that engineers are the only ones that can do engineering. Like, we're not. We need a lot of different things to join in to deliver what we need to deliver, and realizing that, you're not the font of all knowledge, and, you've got an area that you can do that. One of my biggest loves is to bring in the SMEs or the different parts that are needed to deliver a job. And I know what I'm good at, and I stick to that now. I don't try and do everything I used to. I can do this, I can do that. I think just, give them the opportunity and really help them through, and give them positive, feedback and confirmation. And everyone that's done that within my team, my general manager for ops, she's not originally from construction. She's come out of a large role with Australia's biggest seafood company. And again, she's just smashing it in what we're doing. So yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. It sounds like you've had a lot to learn in leadership, but really learned the lessons and applied them. It's really solid. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, ladies, and lovely to speak to you. And let's do a coffee in person at some point. It'd be great.